Vispero. Good morning. Thank you for joining us at the Lighthouse this morning for their TECHNO DEMO. I'm Michael Elliott with SOAR Consultants. Also with me is Jeff Bazer from Vispero, also known as Freedom Scientific. Jeff, say hello.
Hello. Hey, nice to be here. Thank you, Michael.
Okay. Jeff is here by phone because primary focus of our presentation this morning, we're going to talk about the ElBraille and hopefully get as many questions in as possible. Before we get started, I just want to tell you a little about myself and SOAR Technology and have Jeff to do the same about himself. SOAR Technology, we established our company about 10 years ago, and we consult with other individuals that are visually impaired to provide technical service, training with various types of adaptive equipment. We also do web design and 508 compliance. I brought a few pieces of equipment that we do provide some training on. The Polaris, which I have here, which is a note taker. The ElBraille, which I mentioned earlier, is a note taker. Also have the Braille Note Plus. And we can do a bit of a comparison between the note takers if time permits. Also have a Victor Stream Tracker with me today and a brilliant Braille display as well. And part of my company is to provide AT services. We step in cracks where other people don't go. We provide services 7 days, 24 hours. And we really don't care where unique the services are. We cover 5 states, and we provide a lot of technical support, and we would like for you guys to use us as a resource. If you have any questions, I can be reached at 850-696-7627, 850-696-7627. And the website is SOAR Consultants, SOAR Consultants.com. Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you, Michael. I'm Jeff Bazer. I'm what's called a regional sales director at Vispero and Freedom Scientific. I've actually worked here twice, so this is my second time back. Been here 2 years now, and I was here almost 9 the first time. And basically, my job is to work with people like Michael, so trainers and distributors in the given territory. So I have a team of about 10 or 11 of us who work in various parts of the country. I actually cover the south central part of the country, which is Texas and Missouri, Arkansas. I've got 9 states total, and extending all the way to Colorado and New Mexico. So the reason I'm working with Michael today is I've known him for years and years. My equivalent counterpart in the Southeast is a guy named James Bailey. Some of you might know James, and he's covered the Southeast for a long time. But you can get a hold of any of us at Vispero and Freedom Scientific, and we'll certainly get you to the right person. We have a variety of products, all kinds of different technology, from the Braille and more speech products that we'll talk about today. We also have a number of low vision products. And actually, the person that Michael will tell you about, where you can actually purchase the ElBraille and some other products that we'll talk about today, he has all of the products that are sold by Vispero. So if you ever have a need, or you have a friend or a relative who would need a portable video magnifier that you would hold in your hand, all the way up to what we call the desktop CCTVs or desktop video magnifiers, we have it all at Vispero, and would be more than happy to show you any of those products too. So thank you, Michael. Great to be here.
Thank you, Jeff. And who Jeff is speaking of is Michael Hage with Emerald Coast, who actually presented yesterday with the TECHNO DEMO showing various types of equipment, and he showed a lot of equipment from Freedom as well. How we're going to get started, speaking about the ElBraille, Vispero brings us actually 2 products, as Jeff would put it. A Braille display, which is the Focus 5, 5th generation, as well as the ElBraille, which is the box that the Focus 5 actually sits in. The Focus 5 combined with the ElBraille becomes a note taker that is actually running Windows 10. I want to also mention to you, what do you get in the box when you purchase an ElBraille? If you don't have the Focus 5 Braille display, it comes with the Focus 5 Braille display, the box. And if you don't have JAWS, you then will have to purchase JAWS. But if you have JAWS as well as the Focus 5, it cuts down the cost tremendously. The only thing you need to purchase then is actually the ElBraille. Jeff, did I miss anything?
No, you didn't. You said a lot of things there, actually, which is very good, Michael. The Focus Braille display, which we'll talk about separately here at first, and then we'll get into, how it interacts with the ElBraille. But basically what we're doing here, as Michael mentioned, is in order to have the ElBraille product, we are combining the Focus 40. That's how you control it. So the Focus 40 is the refreshable Braille display with a full Braille keyboard. And so the ElBraille is a Windows 10 computer running JAWS. And so when you bring the two together, what you have is a full Windows 10 laptop computer controlled by a Braille keyboard. So that's what the ElBraille is. And the reason that we want to talk about them separately to begin with is because the Focus has a lot of capabilities all by itself, and we have lots and lots of people who are using a Focus 40 Braille display, maybe with their existing laptop computer now or desktop machine, or they might be using it with an iPhone or an Android phone or an iPad as well, because all of these refreshable Braille displays, including the Focus, have the ability to work with the iOS family of products, so iPhones and iPads, as well as Android, and then any Windows 10 machine running JAWS. So the ElBraille is special in the fact that the Focus fits into it, so it becomes all one unit, and then you have, again, a fully functional Windows 10 machine controlled by the Braille keyboard. But I think it's going to be easiest to explain this, Michael, to do like we said, where we talk about the Focus first, and then we kind of bring the technologies together, because that's what really separates the ElBraille from some of the other products on the market, is that it's Windows, it's JAWS, and it's Braille all together.
And with the Focus 5, one of the things Jeff mentioned, how you can connect your iOS device as well as Android. You can actually connect 5 Bluetooth devices at the same time with the unit and 1 USB. And it's terrific how it works. When you first turn on the Focus, it's in pairing mode at that time. And let's say you have 5 different things connected. You can switch that by pressing .1 in the menu button to go directly to your first connection, and then .2 in the menu button to go to your second connection, all the way up to 5 connections. And if you want to switch back to your connection, let's say you're connected USB with the computer, it's the menu button plus .8. Because the Focus Braille display is actually a Perkin keyboard style keyboard with keys 1, 2, 3 on the left, and key 7 is also considered the backspace. And on the left is dots 4, 5, 6 with .8 considered the enter key. One of the things that most people mention about the Focus they really like is the location of the space bar compared to other Braille displays, because your hands fit naturally when you're actually using the display, and your thumb comes down right above the space bar. So that's one of the things that a lot of individuals mention about the Braille display that they really like. What I like about this Braille display more than anything, especially the Focus 5, it has bumpers on it. And I have seen demonstrations where they have actually tossed it off a table and nothing's wrong. If you know, and I know, being visually impaired, we have the oops. We tend to drop a lot of our products. And a lot of our products are, I call them blind friendly, because they're real stable. And the Focus 5 generation is just as stable with the bumpers, and you can drop this unit. It's made of a slight metal. It's not that heavy. So I really like this unit because of that. The other thing with the Focus, we talked about the Braille display, is having a scratch pad. So you can actually take notes with this. So you don't always have to have the ElBraille with you. You don't always have to have it connected to a laptop. You can just take it and go and have it connected to your phone or use it independently with the scratch pad. You can also download books from NLS Braille books and actually read them using the Braille display. It has a mini SD slot that is actually used and a USB connection as well. And it will last up to over 20 hours on a full charge. Jeff, anything else that I actually missed besides the description of this unit?
No, you hit it, Michael. You did good. You talked about the SD card, the mini SD card
Yes.
slot. It's actually the micro SD.
Okay.
You're very close. And what that means is you can connect a storage card to the device. It actually comes with it. So when you order your Focus or purchase it, there will be a micro SD card already in it. And that is how you are able to store books and files on the device. And that actually is how the applications work as well. Like the scratch pad that Michael mentioned, you've got to have the SD card, the micro SD card in the slot in order to make that happen. So that's why you get a micro SD card with it, so you don't even hardly know it's there. But Michael, if I could maybe go back to just a couple of things you said, if that's okay.
That's fine.
You mentioned the multiple Bluetooth connections and
Yes.
then the USB connection, and I think it's important to highlight that because let's give a couple practical examples of how that might work. So maybe you're connected to your computer running JAWS and you're working with your refreshable display, and all of a sudden you have a notification come in on your iPhone or your Android phone. Well, you want to switch so you can read that in Braille, and so that's how that works. So you can just simply with one or two keystrokes move from your computer connection to your phone on your Braille display.
Yes.
And if it's a text, for example, you'd be able to type back to that person, send it, do whatever you needed on your phone, and then just hit that keystroke and move back over to your computer and back in Word or email or whatever it is you're doing. So it's a really easy way to switch back and forth between devices. And like Michael said, if you really wanted to, you could have up to 5 Bluetooth devices connected. So it might not only be your computer and your phone, it could be your phone to an iPad to, another computer via Bluetooth that you had connected. So I don't think you're ever going to run out of, connections there to connect. And then the other nice thing too, with what Michael mentioned, the scratch pads. So sometimes maybe you're not connected to a computer at all, or you just have your Focus 40 Braille display with you, and then you need to take notes, either in a meeting or in class, or even something as simple as writing down a phone number. So with the refreshable display itself, the Focus 40 display, you can accomplish that. You can make that happen by opening the scratch pad. So think of it as like a notepad or a very basic word processor, where you would then be able to take notes or write down phone numbers, whatever it is that you needed to do. And then you could do one of two things. You could either save the file on the micro SD card that's on your display like we talked about before, or once you are connected to a computer with your Braille display, you can then what we call export the text into, say, a Word document or an email, anywhere that you can edit on your computer. So you can either save the file or export it onto your computer and then, save it wherever you want to do on the machine. So there's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of things you can do with this display, even before you're connected to your phone or to a computer, Michael.
Right.
And I just wanted to highlight that.
No, that's great. What I want to show now, Jeff, is show them how easy it is to connect the Focus 5 to the ElBraille unit itself. It has a slot where the Focus 5 actually slides into it, which I'm doing right now. And when I lock it in place, guys, I do this with ease until I have to present it, okay? Okay.
That always happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, nervousness always kick in. So what I'm doing, you put the right side in first, and usually the left side just falls right in place. There's a little button here on the left that I push in place, and now it's locked in. I'm actually holding the unit up with the Braille display itself, Jeff. demonstrating it, and I just put it back down on the table. Now, I just created a note taker running Windows 10 with this connection I just did. Therefore, there's a button up on the top left side, which is the power button, which I will turn on in a minute. This also has two USB slots, a SD slot, as well as a USB-C connection as well. You're actually running Windows 10 using this unit. It has 8 gigs of memory and 128 speed processor. Did I get that backwards? Okay. You can also
8 gigs of RAM and 128 SSD drive for storage.
That's what I got wrong. Okay.
You did good.
The unit is very powerful. This is your laptop, what you're currently using now, but it's all in one unit as I lift it up again. And what I'm going to do with most of the ElBraille, besides a few modifications I made, they boot up within 45 seconds, which is equivalent to the Polaris unit, which is here, and as well as the Braille Plus. That's just one of the comparisons. When they say it's like a laptop, it's going to boot real slow. No, the majority of all the units boot within 45 seconds. As I stated, I've done a few things to my unit, so it boots a little slower because some added things I have done with it as well. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and press the power button to power it up. If you heard that click when it first starts, and one of the nice things I like about it, it will then show the Braille display on the Braille display. It shows the clock. And most of us, including myself, complain when you boot up a laptop, you don't know if it's booting or not because it's so quiet. But this gives you feedback to let you know that something is actually going on in the process. And if I reach further over to the right, I can actually look at my clock where the seconds hand is moving and it's changing the minutes at the same time. I was just reading with my right hand instead of my left. Jeff, anything else you want to say about this connection while it's in the process of booting up? And then we can give a more detailed description of the unit itself.
Right, exactly. The only thing I'd add is that, once you actually boot it, as Michael mentioned, the initial 45 seconds, as you're booting the computer, just like any laptop would be, what you have an option to do, like say you're working throughout the day with this, where you would not shut it down, each time if you were moving from class to class or something like that, and you have an option where you can put it into sleep mode too. So when you bring it back up, it's a lot quicker, just within a couple of seconds. So you would activate that power button, and within just a couple of seconds, your Braille display would be ready for you to type on and for you to move around on the computer. So that initial boot up time, maybe in the morning or when you first started for the day, but then as you are working throughout the day, you can, get it in that sleep mode, which a lot of people do with their computers anyway. But I think the biggest thing that I would say too, Michael, is just as we hear the familiar Windows 10 boot up.
Desktop, folder, new list, new, not selected user.
And you guys heard that familiar voice of eloquence and JAWS. Go ahead, Jeff.
That's exactly right. So that's actually pretty cool. There, what you heard, because what happened is you heard the familiar Windows 10 boot up sound, and then you heard JAWS for Windows. And if you've worked with JAWS for years and years, or if you're new to JAWS, you're still going to be familiar with how it starts up and what it says. And that's why the ElBraille really has a lot of people taking notice, because what we've done here is we've brought a lot of the familiar technologies together. So we have refreshable Braille, we have Windows 10, we have JAWS for Windows, all on one unit. And what we see as we're showing this around the country is there are so many teachers of the visually impaired and so many trainers alike. If they're working with their students and clients, they say, I've got to train my clients or my students on how to use or how to learn Braille. Then I have to train them on how to use JAWS. And by the way, we also have to have some exposure to a laptop and learn how to use Windows. Because by the time they graduate from school, or by the time they're done working through their rehab, if they're working with a rehabilitation counselor and a technology trainer, these are the kind of skills that you really need to have in order to seek employment and go to post-secondary education and things like that. So with the ElBraille, this really brings all of that together. And what we're finding now is that a lot of folks are actually working with just this one unit to accomplish all that we just mentioned. Learning Braille, using JAWS, learning Windows, all three of these together combined under one umbrella.
Great. One thing I did not mention, Jeff, is that this is an i5 processor in this unit, and we did mention this 8 gigs of memory and 128 gig solid state hard drive. And I just want to point that out so you understand the processing speed of the unit, how fast it is. And we were going to give a physical description of the unit, what you can expect. It does have some things that are proprietary to the ElBraille itself, which I think is great. It has the ElBraille notepad, which is built actually into the unit. Therefore, if you choose not to buy Microsoft Office using Word, it actually comes with its own notepad, which is called the ElPad. And also there is the notepad that is normally built into Windows. The other nice thing I like about this unit is that it has a record button as well. And that will be on button E4 on this unit. So by holding down E4, you can actually begin to record, or if you just press E4, you can activate the notepad itself on the unit. The other thing I like about the unit, and I'm here with Kaylin, and Kaylin will tell you I had difficulties connecting to the wireless due to no fault of my own. I was actually selecting the wrong wireless to connect. Here at the Lighthouse, they have guest Wi-Fi and administrative Wi-Fi, and I was connecting to the guest Wi-Fi when they wanted me to do the administration. And the reason I say that came in handy, instead of me always going into the system and trying to identify the Wi-Fi, I pressed E2 on the
LBD-Wi-Fi internet access
on the machine, and it told me that I wasn't connected, and now it is telling me that I'm connected. With the E buttons that's across the front of it, it has a rescue button. Let's say your JAWS go out and you can't figure out what's going on at all. If you press and hold that button down, you can down arrow to have JAWS restart, have the computer restart, or just shut down. I think I got them all three correct. Jeff, if I didn't, please correct me. Okay.
You're doing great.
Okay.
You've done a little studying. Good job, Michael.
I did a little studying and a lot of demoing. I think I'll just point this out. The difference between me demoing in front of you guys, I'm not getting any feedback. Therefore, I don't know if I'm doing good or bad. And I love operating using questions. And that's why I'm asking Jeff, am I actually hitting the point? Because you being in the audience, you will tell me, hey, what is this and what's that? So that's what I'm looking at. And hopefully you will send Caleb some questions so he can ask Jeff and I questions as we're going along. Also, we have the volume button, which is located across the top. So you can raise and lower the volume, which I think is great with the unit. So it's easy access. The next button.
Battery level high. Battery 81%. Time remaining 9 hours and 1 minute remaining.
It said 9 hours and 1 minute remaining. This machine on an average day will run up to 19 hours before the battery actually dies, which is the same with the Polaris Note Taker as well as the Braille Note Plus as well. Their battery life is actually about 19 hours, between 15 and 19 hours. Let me also point out a difference. I mentioned that this is an i5 processor. The processing speed on the Braille Note Touch as well as the Polaris is a lot slower than the ElBraille. Because remember, once again, this is actually a laptop and you're running Windows 10. So the processing speed is a lot faster. It has more memory than both of those note takers. And once again, this is truly a note taker. And then we move over, continue to talk about the button. I digress.
10:25 a.m.
We have a button for the time, because remember with JAWS, you can do insert F12 and receive the time also. But if you hit it twice,
September 23rd, 2020.
you can also receive the date as well. I mentioned what the F4 button is, which is right here. Also, what I think is neat about this unit, let's say you want to use the Braille display and you don't want to be connected to the ElBraille. There's actually on the F6 button, you can actually press that button to disconnect the Braille display directly from the unit, so you're now just using the Bluetooth, which I think is terrific. The other nice thing I like about the buttons I just pointed out up front, you can assign and move those buttons from like 2 can become 4, 4 can become 5. And on this unit, button 5 is a blank button, so you can assign anything to that button that you would like. And if I'm correct, I can actually assign like Microsoft Word to it, Excel, so I can launch that right away just by pressing that button. Jeff, anything you want to say about these buttons that's moving across the front that I just mentioned?
I think you hit it. I mean, what's nice about those, they're there for convenience purposes, and exactly what Michael said. If you want to customize those, that is possible to do that. Right from the menu that Michael mentioned, the first button there, F1 or E1 on the left side, if you have Office installed on the ElBraille, Microsoft Office, need Word, Excel, that kind of thing, there is an option right in that menu to get into your Office programs. So we've done things like that for convenience purposes, but those E buttons, we call them the E buttons that go across the top, are there for your convenience and for things like Michael mentioned. It's nice to know your battery level, nice to know if you're connected to Wi-Fi, things like that with just the press of one button. So that's a very nice advantage to working with this unit.
Jeff, I'll do this. I'll press the E1 button now.
Menu, email,
And you see email.
calculator, C.
And what I'm doing is also have a external keyboard attached. But I can also perform the same commands with the Braille display. So I'm actually going to do that now by doing space.4 to move down.
ElBraille utility submenu, view.
It has a utility submenu.
My files, F.
My files,
Text editor, E.
a text editor, which is the text editor for the ElBraille itself.
Notes, F.
Notes,
Audio player, E.
and that's the audio player we mentioned before, where you can actually do recordings.
Office submenu, O.
And that's Office submenu. I do have Office on here. And by going into the Office,
There you go.
I'm going to press dot 8.
Word, W.
You see there's Word. Instead of me doing dots 4 to move down, I'm going to use my rocker switches now,
Excel, E.
which is Excel. It's next.
PowerPoint, E. Outlook, O. Word, W.
And it wrapped me back around. So by holding E1, I can access Office and look at all those different programs.
Escape.
Michael, this might be a good time to just kind of circle back just a little bit and make sure that people understand as Michael is moving around on this device, we have a couple of options. So the standard way that the ElBraille works is that you're controlling JAWS, you're controlling Windows, and you're controlling your ElBraille completely from the Braille keyboard of the Focus 40 display. That's why we connect the Focus 40 directly into the ElBraille. Remember back when he was connecting the two together, pushing that button to hold the Focus 40 in place. So what happens is, and a lot of people might not know this, Michael, and that's why I just wanted to mention it, is that something that's been built into JAWS for years, I think since 2012 actually, was about when this was introduced, is something we call JAWS Braille In. And what it means is that on a Focus Braille display, you have the ability to control Windows just like you would on your laptop computer with the QWERTY keyboard. You can now do it on the Braille keyboard. So what that means is we've built equivalent keystrokes in JAWS to be able to control Windows. So for example, there's the Windows key, your Control, your Alt, Escape, all of those keys, there are equivalent keystrokes on the Braille display to perform those.
Oh.
So when you first get an ElBraille and you start to use it, that is something that you'll need to learn, but we actually have some documentation that makes it pretty easy, fairly easy to go through and learn what these keystrokes are and be able to remember them. And once you do that, then you're well on your way to learning, how to use the ElBraille from the standpoint of the Braille display, the Braille keystrokes to control Windows. Now, you can also, like Michael does, you can have a QWERTY keyboard connected if you want to. So this comes in pretty handy from the standpoint of if you're a teacher of the visually impaired, maybe they didn't know Braille as well as you do, or a parent maybe who wanted to work with you and was, training their child on how to use the ElBraille and how to use JAWS. There's a lot of reasons why it becomes pretty convenient to, plug in a QWERTY keyboard sometimes. But he's doing that with just one of the USB ports. Remember, there's a couple of USB ports on here, so it might not be a keyboard. You might plug in a thumb drive. Mm-hmm. You might plug in a USB monitor. In a little while, we'll talk about the fact that we have a Pearl camera that we've used with JAWS for years for scanning and reading purposes. And, of course, we can use that with the ElBraille, too. So, Michael, just a lot of reasons why USB ports are handy and working for lots of different things you could connect.
Jeff, I will go back and mention the keystrokes you were talking about, how easy it is to learn the keystrokes here. The modifier key will actually be on the ElBraille with the Braille display is the enter key plus the space bar. And keep that in mind when you want to use the Alt key. So your pointer finger will actually, on the left side, dot 1 is considered the function key. Dot 2 is considered the JAWS key. Dot 3 is the control key. Dot 4 is the Windows key. Dot 5 is the insert key. And dot 6 is the Alt key. And with the combination of pressing enter with the space bar and Windows, I press R for the run command line.
Run dialog. Type the name of
and I type in WinWord. If I can spell it right.
W-I-N-W-O-R-D.
And I press enter.
Enter. Desktop. Folder view list view. Not selected user 1 of 17. Open in dash. Document 1 dash Word. Print view. Edit.
And I just open Word. Therefore, I don't use the Braille display all the time. I do a lot when I'm demoing it, but sitting around the house, I'll grab a keyboard because for me, that's a lot quicker. But when I'm out and about using this unit, I don't have the keyboard with me. I just want to show you how those commands work. And any command you can actually do using the Braille display, you can do with the keyboard and vice versa. We know we have JAWS Learn, which is insert number 1 to put it in learn mode. You can actually do that with this keyboard by pressing dot 1, 4, 5, 6 space bar, which I just put it in keyboard help. So now, let's say I want to know what a key is, and I'm about to press one now.
Braille wheel 1 moves up or backward through controls when tracked in focus. Moves the Braille level 1 line when tracked into the Braille cursor.
And the mode key that's right above that.
Braille wheel 1. Press the toggle list mode on the top or switch between lines, sentences, paragraphs, and display panic. If you have selected track Braille cursor, press this button to read a short reminder on what this navigation rocker does.
I can also press the down rocker on the left side.
Braille left down moves to the next line and speeds it.
I can press this key, which tells me nothing. So
Braille wheel 2 moves up or backward through controls when tracked in focus.
It was
Track into the Braille cursor moves the Braille display left 1 segment on the line. Braille right selector increases the Braille auto advance speed by half a second.
Okay, and the left right selector.
Braille left selector decreases the Braille auto advance speed by half a second.
And we have a left shift key.
Braille shift 1 silences speech.
And a right shift.
Braille shift 2 silences speech.
So all those keys can be used in combination in order to operate the ElBraille, or just using the Braille display on your laptop or your computer connected Bluetooth or through USB. Jeff, I doubt to show how simple it is to actually learn these commands, which you pointed out. And there's some excellent documentation on how to do this as well. And I just turned off keyboard help.
Michael, this might be a good time also to talk about cost potentially a little bit, because the reason I bring that up is because, and before we even get into that, it would be good to say that those keystrokes that Michael just was talking to you about, you can learn that on any computer if you have a Focus connected to it. So maybe you couldn't afford a full ElBraille right now, but you had a Focus 40 Braille display that you had connected to another computer, and it could be any computer. So all of those keystrokes are exactly what you need to learn to use the ElBraille, but also when you have your Focus connected to any computer, you can completely control Windows from the Focus display. And if you learn how to do that, then by the time you got an ElBraille, you'd be good to go. You'd be all set. You'd plug that Focus in and away you'd go because you knew already how to control it from the Braille display specifically. So, that's one thing that's pretty nice is that because there's two units to the Braille display, or to the ElBraille, you've got your Focus and you have your ElBraille. Maybe now, because of budgets of any kind, whether you're getting this yourself, whether this is coming from the state, whether it's coming from your school, budget might only afford right now half of the ElBraille, which would be the refreshable Braille display. You can then add the ElBraille later. So that's nice, Michael, is that you can do both of those and do them at separate times. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Also, I just looked over my notes. One of the things I want to point out, since this unit is sold all over the world, what does come in this box is several adapters, so you can plug this in a 110, a 220, or 240, depending on where you are in the world. So this unit can be charged and used anywhere in the world. I wanted to point that out because I thought that was great, because I'm on the listserv and I'm interacting with people all over the world on the listserv who are excited about this, about the ElBraille and the capability of it. One of the questions I'm always asked, what if I don't want to use JAWS and I want to use NVDA to cut down the cost? It does work with NVDA. There's not an issue with it. You just have to install a driver, which is simple to do, as well as when you're using the Focus on a regular laptop. It's just a driver you have to install. But some of the commands are very limited because of the driver that NVDA created. They created some limitations, so it doesn't take full advantage of the Focus Braille display connected to your laptop. And right now, and Jeff, maybe you can explain this, which I think is a great deal, how Freedom is going about selling JAWS these days to individuals. Because I know I paid $1,100 for my JAWS back in the day, and now people are telling me they're getting it for $70 and $110 per year.
Right, exactly right. There's some options now as far as purchasing JAWS goes. So this becomes a lot more affordable to be able to do that. You basically can pay for your cost of JAWS over time. It's almost like a financing program. So you can pay by the year if you want to. So you can get a JAWS license for $90 per year. And sometimes we even have some coupons to make it even a little less than that if you come across those at different shows and things like that for specials that we run. But basically, almost like how most things work now, where you can have a subscription. That's how Office works, and that's how we're working with JAWS and all of our software, JAWS, ZoomText, and Fusion as well. So if you do not have an older JAWS license when you're considering an ElBraille, it's only going to add about $90 onto the cost of it if you actually have to purchase JAWS. But the good news, Michael, from what you said before too, is if you have JAWS that you've been using for years already, or an older JAWS license, you can install that on your ElBraille, and it'll work that way as well. And the only other thing that I would mention quickly on refreshable displays and installing drivers and things like that, Michael mentioned using the Focus with NVDA, and you can certainly do that if that is your screen reader of choice, for sure. If you have, another laptop computer or Windows desktop that you're using where that's installed, you could use your Focus display with that. The only very convenient thing that I would say, when you use it with JAWS, you don't have to install any drivers at all, and you just literally plug and play. You plug your Focus display into the computer via USB. JAWS sees it immediately, and you're up and running. That's it. The only thing you would need to do would be to, set up your contracted or uncontracted Braille, your Braille settings the way that you wanted those. and then otherwise, you would be good to go. Same thing when you connect your focus to your ElBraille with JAWS when you use that for the first time. So again, if maybe you had your focus display first, and then you got your ElBraille a few months or a year later, whatever it was, as long as it's the Focus Generation 5, the latest Focus display, it can be any Focus. Mm-hmm. And you just plug it in, connect it to the ElBraille as Michael showed you, and pushing that button, that lever in on the left side to hold it in place. But as long as it's a Focus Gen 5, it can be any one, and it'll work the same way.
Also, Jeff, I want to mention that it does come in a nice leather case, which I just held up for those individuals who could see. And you have access to all the different connections by lifting the flaps on both sides. And also it has a pocket up top, which I keep the AC adapter in the top as well. And like I said, this is USB-C, which you can plug to charge the unit itself, or as it's plugged into a computer, it will charge at the same time. See, that's what I want to mention. You can actually plug this entire unit into a computer and just use the Braille display, and you don't have to detach the Braille display if you would like to do that as well. I thought that was a neat concept as well, Jeff. The other question, Jeff, I always ask, and is, can I connect this to a monitor? Yes, you can. And I'm going to ask you to explain that, since explain it. That's all I got to say to you. How to connect this to a monitor?
Sure. There's a few different ways.
Yes.
We have the ability to use USB ports to be able to connect to a monitor. There's a couple of USB ports on the unit, and there's actually some monitors out there that allow you to connect that way. There's one, and I know you can get it on Amazon and probably different places. It's about a 15-inch monitor, and you would you use both USB ports, because one would draw the power to actually power the monitor, and then the other is how you actually connect to be able to view what's happening on the ElBraille. So that's probably the most popular way.
But the coolest way.
That's right. There's another way to do it wirelessly as well. So you actually can have your ElBraille near a monitor. There's a little adapter that you can buy, and you can get that at various places too, like Amazon or any place else.
And Jeff, I'm sure in the box that the adapter come in while you're talking.
Oh, okay. Very nice. So you can actually do that, and there's a little bit of initial setup that is required in order to do that initially. But then, once that's connected, there's actually no wires between your ElBraille and the monitor at all. And anybody who needs to is able to see exactly what's happening on the ElBraille, on the monitor that way too. Which comes in real handy for training or for teachers who need to see what's happening in Braille, parents who don't know Braille, that kind of thing. There's, of course, a million reasons why it's always nice to have the ability to plug into a monitor when needed.
And the nice thing about plugging into a monitor, that way you're not connected by wires, so you can be 20, 30 feet away from the monitor. So you and your student can be at, quote unquote, their regular desk while you're looking at the monitor and they're actually using the machine. So you're not tethered to the monitor, which I think is a great feature, how that works.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
One of the things we mentioned, Jeff, you want me to show them how it works with the scanner with OpenBook, or?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. So, while Michael's getting that set up, if he's got to plug it in or anything like that, remember there's convenient OCR in JAWS as well, Michael, that you can use.
I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
So you can use it with OpenBook, or you can use it with JAWS. We have something called convenient OCR that's built into JAWS to use your Pearl camera, so you don't have to have OpenBook. You can certainly use it that way as well. It really depends on the type of scanning that you want to do. If you just need to scan a document and have it read back to you, and then maybe have it go into Microsoft Word, we have the ability to do that now. Actually, with the latest version of JAWS Zoom Text and Fusion, version 2021, that's going to be coming out in about a month. It will automatically do that, Michael, where you can scan, and it will automatically open Word and place the document into Word for you.
That is sweet.
So you've got that done. Right now, what you would do in version 2020 and before is you could copy and paste it into Word. Mm-hmm. So what happens is when you use Convenient OCR to scan, it comes up in an editable, an editor form. You can read it, you can move through it, you can do anything you need to do, and then when you press escape, it just goes away. And then you can scan your next thing and whatever you need to do. But if you want to save it or you need to do anything with it, then like I said, you can do a select all, copy and paste into any place that you want to. Now, what Michael's going to show you, I believe, is we have another scanning and reading program called Open Books that's been around for a long time. And that's another way to be able to use your Pearl camera to be able to scan and read as well.
So I pressed the space bar because what I did, I went to the desktop and I used first letter navigation using the Braille display until I got the Open Book, and I pressed .8 to enter, and the Open Book is there. Now I'm just going to press the space bar because my keyboard is closer to me to start scanning. At least I thought I was. Oops, I put my hand in the way. There we go.
Guiding people through vision loss. Authorization for release of information. I hereby authorize the release of it.
Okay, and I just hit the control key to stop the speech. Just wanted to show you that you can still use Open Book if you wanted a full program. As I stated, you're running Windows 10, but this is actual note taker. This is a game changer in the industry for note takers. Because one of the complaints that I always hear, I love the Polaris. I think the Braille Plus is great, but the problem is they're using programs they created, and it's hard to transfer that to mainstream. And here, every program on the ElBraille is mainstream programs you can go buy off the shelf. And when upgrades come out for Windows 10, you receive those upgrades at the same time that everyone else received them. Both of our note takers that are actually running the Android platform, they're not current. They're like two operating systems behind. They work well, but they're not running the most current one. And they tell you they don't need to run the most current because all their programs work and they're able to do everything that you wish. But I prefer the most current operating system. And that's why I like the Windows 10 aspect of it. Also, I look at all the modifications they have to make with those units with Google Docs. Here, you're running Google Docs directly from Windows 10. And your instructors that you're working with can actually help you because you're running Windows 10 and you're actually running from a Windows platform instead of a platform that's been modified in order to run those different programs that's part of Google Docs. Anything else, Jeff?
You hit it right on the head, Michael. I got to tell you, I mean, we've seen this over and over, guys. I mean, with all due respect, note takers, the HumanWare devices have been out a long time. The Polaris and the other HIMS note takers have too, and they certainly have their place. And they along with some of the older note takers we had at Freedom Scientific as well, like the PackMate, and even going back to the Braille and Speak and Braille Light. These things have been around for years and years, and what made them so popular was the fact that they were portable. They had the Braille keyboard. They were instantly turned on so that, when you needed to take a note, all you did is flip a switch and boom, boom, you were up and ready to go immediately. That's changed a little bit now with Android and Windows alike. It takes, a few seconds longer to boot up. But absolutely right what you said, Michael. I mean, the biggest difference between Android devices and Windows is there's a lot of them, but let's just highlight a couple like you said. The instant familiarity with your teachers, with trainers, with your parents. Now, this is not a foreign device. This is the same kind of computer they're using all day at the office or in their classroom, and that kind of thing. Windows has been around for a very long time, and people are familiar. And that's exactly what we're running on the ElBraille with JAWS. So once a monitor is connected and they see what you're doing, they're like, oh yeah, a desktop. I know what that is. So that becomes a game changer all in itself. And then you mentioned things like Google Docs, you know, and the things that have to be run on these note takers now and that are being used in the classroom and in other places. Google Docs is different, you know, with Windows than it is even on Android and on the original platforms. From the standpoint of it's the Windows environment, it's more familiar. People are using it on their computers as well, like we mentioned, so they're going to know how to use it with an ElBraille. And from the standpoint of JAWS, you know, being the backbone of the ElBraille, JAWS being the screen reader, all of the scripting that goes into making JAWS work with all these different Windows programs, you get all of that functionality with the ElBraille as well. So a lot of times, you know, on our iPhones and on our Android devices, when a new operating system comes out and you upgrade to that, some apps that used to work may not anymore because they've been redesigned to work on the new operating system, or the OS itself has made changes. That's a lot less common in Windows, though. Even when there's updates to Windows and there's updates to JAWS, they're still going to work with all the things that they used to in most cases. So you don't have to worry about near as much, you know, things not working or the incompatibility when you're moving to the next version of the operating system. And we really see that as an advantage. And Michael, if I could just say one other thing real quick.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm going on here forever, but this is another thing that we came across that actually I thought was pretty important as well. We've been in a couple of different school districts, and what has happened sometimes is that when we're trying to connect note takers that run on Android and, you know, other ones that are a little bit more foreign to the IT folks and the Wi-Fi networks that they're creating in these school districts, sometimes they haven't worked. And what has happened, I've heard this for at least a few different districts, is there was actually a separate Wi-Fi network that had to be created in order to make these more proprietary note takers work. And they did that and were able to make it work. But with the ElBraille, what's very nice about that, and we found this in a few different places we demoed, is that when we needed to log on to their Wi-Fi network, it worked very well because it connects just as any regular laptop would on the network. So that's how the network sees it, as another laptop computer. So there was no problem with logging onto their network if we had the proper credentials in order to do it.
Now, Michael and Jeff, I have a question from a viewer.
Okay.
He was interested in the scanner, the Pearl scanner that y'all demonstrated, and he was wondering what the price of that was, and maybe go a bit more in depth with it.
I don't do prices. Jeff, if you know the price,
The Pearl?
Yes.
Sure. So the Pearl camera is great. I mean, it's been out now for a number of years, and it's come down in quite a lot. It is $295 now in order to get into a Pearl camera. So very affordable. And again, it's going to work with the convenient OCR functionality and JAWS infusion. And then it's also going to work in the open book program. So back when Michael did that happened quickly, guys. But what he did is he took a form from the lighthouse, and that's what he scanned, an authorization form. So with just the camera taking a picture of that, and you heard, if you remember, it started reading pretty much immediately once that shutter sound was played. So within just a few seconds, once a document is scanned, it's reading back to you, and you're able to do that with your mail, with any kind of printed documentation that you have at all.
And you can contact Emerald Coast for additional information or pricing. Their number is 850-478-8381. I'm actually typing the number in mid-air. That's the only way I remember it. EmeraldCoastLowVisionAids.com. I'll go to their website. Get in contact with me. I can direct you to them, as well as Freedom, to talk more about the Pearl camera. Give me a call, as I mentioned before, 7627. Caitlin, any other questions?
I think that's it for now.
Jeff, we're going to wrap this up, but I would like for you to speak to them about Learn Mode, learning Braille. I know with the Braille Plus, with the last release, there's a study guide in there for individuals who learn Braille who are not familiar with Braille. So you mind telling them about the Braille? Is it called Braille Study, if I have it right? With the ElBraille and the Braille display.
Sure, absolutely. No, you've got it. Braille study mode is what we call that. And this is something that has been with the Focus display and JAWS been involved here for quite a while now, a number of years. And it's something that the ElBraille can take advantage of as well. But basically, when you're using the display and you're reading Braille, any word that's on the display, you can have that audibly spelled for you, or just have JAWS reiterate the word that you're on. And there's some keystrokes that are involved with the cursor router keys in order to do that. So this is a way to help teachers who are training their students or training clients on how to learn Braille and using refreshable Braille in order to do that. And it's just a way, again, to verify or to reiterate the word that you're on. You can have it announce that, and then you can have that word spelled out to you as well, either in uncontracted or contracted Braille, whichever you have selected on your Braille display at that time. So it will actually tell you the contraction or not, and you can, let's see, the other thing you can do, Michael, and I'm doing this all from memory now, okay. I don't have this in front of me, but the other thing that you can do is each Braille character that you're on, you can have that read as well. So, for example, if you're not sure about that ER sign or that OF, the of sign, you get those mixed up maybe, or the with sign, depending on what's happening there. Those are all really close together. So you could hit your Braille study mode key and have JAWS verify which contraction you're looking at, or the entire word. So that is totally up to you on how that works. But it's a great way, and it's just included. It's not a feature you have to pay for or anything like that. It's just a JAWS feature that's there. But it's a great way to help teach Braille, when you're working with your students and clients.
And what Jeff and I both failed to mention throughout this presentation about the router keys, how when you're reading Braille, as he stated, if you come to a contraction, you can find that letter, press the router key, which is above it, which will move the cursor to that exact spot he's talking about. Jeff, is there anything else you think we need to cover about the ElBraille? I've gone through all my notes, and I think we covered everything that we discussed. We were going to talk about.
I think so, Michael. The one thing I would do just to wrap this thing up, when you're looking at all of these note takers, if you actually have the luxury to be able to look at maybe all three of them, if trying to make your decision, they all three have their place. They've all three been out a while. But I think the big thing with the ElBraille is that this is really in kind of a different class, I think, because number one, it's Windows. Number two, it uses JAWS. So it's much more like a laptop computer would be, a Windows computer, than a note taker itself, even though it's in the note taker category. And the reason that it is because, again, it's portable, it's got long battery life, and it's controlled by a Braille display, Braille keyboard. And that's like all the other note takers are as well. Mm-hmm. But, if you're eventually looking at employment, if you want to learn Windows, this is the way to do it, because you've got it all right in front of you on the ElBraille. And even though you're probably going to be trying to solidify QWERTY keyboard skills as well, this is really a great device to take a look at, because we saw the advantages of this when the concept of the ElBraille was coming together. We saw JAWS, we saw Windows, we saw Braille, all in one device. And like we mentioned earlier, all those three things are things that technology trainers and teachers of the visually impaired are trying to do every day with their clients and students. And now with the ElBraille, you can do it all in one device.
Awesome. And I'd like to thank everyone for participating today. And therefore, if you're interested in the ElBraille, JAWS, or any equipment that's sold by Freedom, you can purchase from Michael Hage or give me a call. We'll be happy to come out and demo any equipment that you may be interested in. Once again, thanks again for joining us and taking time out of your busy day to be with us. And the word is, be safe, if nothing else. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. We appreciate your time.
I'm waiting for Caitlin to tell me that we're off the air.